stop saying, "My English is bad." Really? Because every time you say that, you are doing two things. First, you are apologizing for learning. And second, you are telling your brain that you are not good enough. But learning a language is not about being perfect. It's about communicating. And today, I want to show you a much better way to speak English with confidence. My name is Alex, and in this video, we are going to talk about confidence when speaking English. Because many English learners already know a lot of vocabulary, they understand grammar, they can read and listen quite well. But when it is time to speak, something happens. They suddenly feel nervous, and the first sentence they say is often, "Sorry, my English is bad." Let's talk about why this sentence is not helpful and what you can say instead. Why people say this? Many learners say this sentence because they want to be polite. They don't want to make mistakes. They don't want the other person to have unrealistic expectations. So they start the conversation by apologizing. But the problem is that this sentence creates a negative atmosphere. It immediately puts you in a weaker position. Instead of starting the conversation with confidence, you start with doubt. Imagine you meet someone new. You introduce yourself, and the first thing you say is, "Sorry, my English is bad." What happens next? You already feel less confident, and the other person may feel slightly uncomfortable. Not because your English is bad, but because the conversation started with an apology. Most people do not expect perfect English. Here is something very important to remember. Most people in the world speak English as a second language. That means they also make mistakes. They also search for words. They also speak with an accent, and that is completely normal. English is a global language. People from many different countries use English to communicate. They do not expect perfection, they expect communication. So the goal is not to speak perfectly. The goal is to express your ideas clearly. Simple English is strong English. Another mistake many learners make is believing that complicated sentences sound more intelligent. But in reality, clear and simple English is often the best English. For example, imagine you want to express your opinion. You might try to say something very complicated like, "I would like to express my perspective regarding this situation." But you can say the same idea in a much simpler way. You can say, "I think this situation is interesting," or "I think this situation is important." Short sentences are easier to understand, they are easier to say, and they sound natural in conversation. Even native speakers often use very simple structures. What confident speakers do differently? People who sound confident in English usually follow a few simple habits. First, they speak a little more slowly. They give themselves time to think. They do not rush their words. Second, they focus on clarity instead of perfection. Their goal is to communicate their ideas, not to create the most complicated sentence. Third, they accept that small mistakes are normal. Mistakes are part of learning any language. Every conversation is practice. Every conversation helps you improve. What you can say instead. So if you should not say, "My English is bad," what can you say instead? Here are some better alternatives. You can say, "I'm still learning English." This sentence sounds positive and honest. It shows that you are improving. You can also say, "I'm practicing my English." This shows that speaking is part of your learning process. Another good option is, "I'm working on improving my English." This sentence sounds confident and proactive. You can also say, "I'm trying to speak more English every day." All of these sentences sound much more confident than apologizing. They show progress, they show effort, and they show a positive attitude toward learning. Confidence is a skill. Confidence does not appear suddenly. It develops over time. The more you speak, the more comfortable you become. At first, speaking may feel difficult. You may need time to find the right words. But every conversation builds experience, and experience builds confidence. Think of language learning like learning to ride a bicycle. At the beginning, it feels unstable. You may make mistakes, but slowly, your balance improves. Eventually, riding becomes natural. Speaking English works the same way. Remember this. Your English does not need to be perfect to be useful. Communication is the real goal. If people understand your message, then your English is already working. So instead of apologizing for your English, focus on expressing your ideas. Speak clearly, speak calmly, and most importantly, keep practicing. Every conversation is an opportunity to improve. Now I'm curious about something. Have you ever said, "My English is bad"? Or maybe you still say it sometimes. Write yes or no in the comments. I would really like to know. So remember this simple rule. Stop saying, "My English is bad." Instead, say something positive. For example, "I'm still learning English," or "I'm practicing my English." These sentences sound confident, honest, and natural. Learning a language takes time, but every step forward matters, and every conversation helps you grow. If you enjoy learning English in a simple and encouraging way, don't forget to subscribe. This is the Rocket English Podcast, the place where your English takes off. See you in the next episode.